Yesterday, French President Emmanuel Macron crossed the Channel into Britain. He visited Keir Starmer and King Charles, but he couldn't help but surrender something over at Windsor Castle.
The French delegation were trying to get ahead of the carriage procession, and they got ahead and they were trying to unload all the luggage before the carriages arrived, and they realised they'd run out of time and they had to drive off very quickly, and all the luggage fell out of the cars. So this is all the French luggage being spilled out on the floor.
How embarrassing. Anyway, whilst he was here, Macron and Starmer unveiled their latest plan to stop the boat, because let's face it, the last plan of smashing the gangs simply isn't working. In fact, we've seen record levels of channel crossings this year. So a new plan. Surely that's a good thing. It can't be as bad as the last one, right? Well, this one isn't going to work either. In fact, I would go further than that. I would say that any solution to Britain's problem with migrants coming across the Channel illegally will never ever involve the European Union or the French authorities. They are not going to help us find a solution here, and I'll explain why in the video. I'll also tell you exactly what I would do personally to solve this problem overnight, and I really do mean that. Okay, let's start by taking a look at Keir Starmer's plan. And it's actually really quite simple. They're terming it a one-in, one-out policy. An illegal migrant crosses the Channel on a dinghy and we deport them back to France pretty much immediately. Sounds good, right? Well, there's a bit of a catch. We also then have to take a completely different illegal migrant who wasn't on the boat from France and bring them to the UK. Yikes.
Starting first with tackling illegal migration. It is a global crisis, and it's a European crisis, but it is also very acutely a crisis for our two nations, a crisis of law, security, humanity, and fairness. We face a sprawling, multi-billion-pound enterprise run by organised criminal gangs, leading hundreds of people to their death in the Channel. So we're determined, together, to end this vile trade. There is no silver bullet here, but with a united effort, new tactics, and a new level of intent, we can finally turn the tables. So I'm pleased to announce our agreement today on a groundbreaking returns pilot. For the very first time, migrants arriving via small boat will be detained and returned to France in short order. In exchange for every return, a different individual will be allowed to come here via a safe route, controlled and legal.
Now, whilst this is actually a bad idea, some people are criticising this for all the wrong reasons. They're imagining in their heads that a boat with 50 migrants comes across the Channel from France to Britain and we return it to France. However, because France then sends us 50 other migrants, the numbers are exactly the same, and so this policy would and could never do anything. Now, that's not quite a fair criticism when you really think about it, because it's all about incentives. What you've effectively done is deter those initial 50 people from crossing the Channel on a boat because they know that they will not be the ones that are allowed to stay in Britain. Sure, 50 people would then come across to Britain, but they wouldn't be the people on the boats. If you disincentivize the people on the boats, then we don't have to send anyone back to France. And if we don't send anyone back to France, well, France can't send us any migrants. So in theory, there is some kind of logic there. I hope I explained that well. Having just said that I can see the logic behind this, why do I maintain that this is a terrible idea and simply is not going to work? Well, there's quite a few reasons. First of all, the numbers are capped at 50 per week. Yeah, you heard that right. We can send back to France a maximum of 50 illegal migrants per week. Now, I want you to think in your head the amount of times you've been listening to the news and heard reports of over 1,000 people crossing the Channel in a single day. Yet we can send a maximum of 50 back to France. When you really think about it, this means that 95%, if not more, of the people who cross, even with this scheme in place, are going to be allowed to stay. That's not much of a disincentive, is it?
Well, look, I'm afraid this deal is another hopeless gimmick, just like Keir Starmer's pathetic claim a year ago to be smashing the gangs, which has dismally failed because record numbers of illegal immigrants so far this year have crossed the channel, record ever numbers. This is another gimmick, just like the smash the gangs claim. And the reason for that is that only 50 illegal immigrants per week are going to get sent back to France. And that amounts to only 6% of the illegal arrivals. Now, that means that 94% of illegal arrivals are going to be allowed to stay in the UK. And obviously, if 94% of the illegal immigrants are allowed to stay in the UK, there's going to be no deterrent effect whatsoever. And the record ever numbers, the highest ever numbers of illegal immigrants that Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper and the Labour Party have presided over, unfortunately, are going to continue. This is a gimmick and it won't work.
Now, if that disincentive wasn't weak enough, well, it gets even worse because Yvette Cooper was being interviewed by Nick Ferrari on LBC and she refused to confirm that she thinks we can actually even get to that 50 number. So it's likely to be even less.
Could be fewer than 50.
And so we need to get this started and we need to build this over time.
So it could be fewer than 50 if the number's not fixed.
Well, we will start this and we will grow this. That's the approach that we will take, and that's why we've not fixed numbers.
Right. So lastly, Home Secretary, it could be fewer than 50, the answer which is yes.
So, Nick, what you're trying to do is to get me to sort of to play in and to speculate about different numbers.
You were the one who said the number's not fixed.
Yeah, it's not fixed, exactly. That's
so it could be fewer than 50.
So I'm not going to speculate about the numbers that we'll get to.
It's pretty clear that sending a tiny number of people back to France is not going to dissuade anyone from giving it a try. And what happens if you get sent back to France? What do you think they're going to do? They're just going to try again. And what's our response to that? What, we just keep sending the same 50 people back to France every week? Well, if you think about it, that's even worse for us, because we would be sending the same 50 people who keep trying to cross back to France, and France would be sending us brand new migrants who had never even attempted a crossing, and they would be sending them straight to us. The numbers of illegal migrants coming into the UK would actually go up. Really not good. I'm not done, because there's another reason that this simply will not work. What do you think happens here in the UK when we try and deport someone back to France? Well, I'll tell you. The human rights lawyers will have an absolute field day. They will be looking at this and all they will be seeing are billable hours, income. They'll be filing petitions to the courts, claims, using the ECHR, everything possible to fight these cases, deporting them back to France. It doesn't matter, of course, that no harm will come to these people in France. That's not relevant. All they see are billable hours and income. And listen, I get it. Everyone needs to have a living. Everyone needs to earn money. Well, I mean, there's quite a lot of people just sat on benefits. That's not good, but that's another story. I do understand that. But what they are effectively doing to the British people is treason. They are taking your taxes, your money, and they are using that to fund and wage a war effectively against you, the British people. And they will continue to do that. Now, when you really think about it, Keir Starmer himself is a human rights lawyer. So is it beyond the pale to imagine that perhaps he's considered all of this and he's just creating jobs for the boys, you know, work for his friends? Who knows? I mentioned at the start of this video that I don't think France or the European Union are ever going to be a part of solving this problem, especially when it comes to Britain. And I'll explain why. Think about it from the French perspective. You have 20, 30, 40,000 people from North Africa and the Middle East milling around Dunkirk and all around the rest of France. Why would they want to stop those people getting on the boats and going across the channel and becoming Britain's problem? Then it's no longer France's problem. France does not want to solve this at all. That's why we had to pay them hundreds of millions of pounds just to hire a few extra police officers to occasionally stop a dinghy, which, you know, all of those people would then just get in a different dinghy the next day and still cross. It's a pointless, futile exercise. France doesn't want to stop this. But the European Union, they don't want to stop this either. Think how bad it would look to the rest of the EU member states if Britain got control of its own borders. Think about the kind of message that would send if we were able to actually police our borders and we didn't have an illegal migration crisis when the rest of Europe did. The message that it would send to all of the citizens of those countries is that if you want to control your borders like Britain, the best way to do it is to leave the European Union. And they will not allow that. They cannot allow that. So the EU does not want this problem in the channel to stop. It's as simple as that. If it did, then, well, you'd start to see people in Ireland calling for an Irish exit. You would start to see people in Germany and Poland. They would all want to leave the European Union. In fact, some people in those countries already do. So yeah, the European Union, France, not going to be a part of the solution. We have to solve this ourselves. I also mentioned at the start of this video that I had a solution to solve this crisis overnight, and I do. Now, of course, it's not the kind of solution that Keir Starmer is going to go for, but here it is. I would do a deal with the Taliban in Afghanistan. I would tell them, hey, we're going to send some people who crossed into our country illegally over to you on a plane. Now, we're going to pay you £500 for every person we send. To us, that's really not a significant amount of money. It's way, way cheaper than the Rwanda plan. But to the Afghans, that's quite a considerable amount. So that might work, but the numbers could differ. Now, I would also tell the Taliban, for that £500, you have to leave these people alone for 14 days, okay? Unless they commit a crime in your country, you leave them alone for 14 days. After that, do with them as you see fit in Afghanistan, whatever you need to do. I would also give the people that we're deporting a small amount of money, probably in Afghan currency. I don't even know what the Afghan currency is. That way, they have 14 days free from the Taliban to get out of the country. They can go to Pakistan, they can go to wherever. It's not really our problem at that point. Now, if you implement a policy like that, how many people do you think are going to keep crossing the channel? My guess, absolutely none, because who wants a free plane ticket to Afghanistan and a couple of £100 to get out of the country? Nobody. Now, of course, all of the screeching lefties and the liberals will say, oh no, you can't do that, you know, Taliban, Afghanistan, not a safe country, whatever. Do you realise how much peril Britain is in right now? Yes, we are going to have to do some things which, you know, previously, historically, may have seemed really uncomfortable or unpleasant. We are in a bad situation and we have to solve this problem. Anyway, that's my idea. Please let me know what you think. Maybe you think I've, you know, gone off the deep end. Maybe you think I'm crazy. Maybe you're right. And you can absolutely express that in the comments, but I do at least think it would work. You have one country as a catch-all where you can send everybody to. That way you don't have to worry about all these different deals with different countries. Problem solved, Afghanistan. Anyway, let me know what you think. I have gone a bit red in the face. The mustache is gone, as you've probably noticed. I was in Cornwall for a few days. Spent a little bit too much time in the sun, hence the rosy cheeks. But yeah, I had a nice time. Back to it now. Back to making videos full time. And yeah, till the next one. Please do leave a like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you in a future video.